Wait.
We're
Why
live.
are we?
We're live, baby.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to
Hello.
Relishing the Dead. I'm Dawn.
No, we're not. We're not live. We're not live. We're not
It says
live.
live.
No.
Take two.
Dead.
We weren't live. It was recording.
Oh,
It says we're live right now.
it says we're live.
Well, okay then.
See what happens when I come on the show? Just
See?
It's all your fault.
right from the beginning.
I love it.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right.
Welcome to Relishing the Dead. I'm Dawn.
I'm Carol.
Eliza.
Barb.
And I'm Dustin.
Our special guest for tonight. And tonight we are going to be discussing episode 16 of season 6, Last Day on Earth, season 7, episode 1. The day will come when you won't be. So I'm going to read a little piece from an article from Gimple just to get us started about this episode that we're going to be talking about. And this is what he said. I think the hardest thing about it was thinking while starting the script. Well, what would break Rick? Said Gimple. It was all in the book in issue 100, but looking for a way to break the audience too. Not in a way that is in any way to hurt them, but for them to believe that Rick Grimes would be under the thumb of Negan, that he would go through an experience that would do that to him, that the audience would go through an experience too, so that they would believe that Rick could do what this guy Negan says. And that was from Gimple. So,
Wow.
Okay.
what do y'all think about that little statement?
100% true.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they hit it out the park. This is the penultimate episode that it was make or break the viewers.
Mm-hmm.
You either stuck with it or you quit
Mm-hmm.
after these episodes.
Correct.
You know? So many people stopped watching after these episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And it had to be something so dramatic to break Rick, because Rick was such a strong character and never gave up, regardless of what was going on. He never gave up. So it had to be something that would absolutely break him.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big breaking him for sure, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it also too exposes Rick's weaknesses. Because the entire episode, actually, when I rewatched it, and thank you guys for having me on. When I rewatched the episode, it's actually now one of my favorite episodes because the entire thing focuses on protection, which, as you guys know, is kind of my forte.
Right.
It just, in those moments, it kind of makes you think about how weak that Rick's group was in some ways. And then you throw Negan in there doing what he's doing because he's trying to illustrate to them this entire time, here's what I want you to do. And we'll get into that. But yeah, I think Rick was thinking a lot more about what was going on other than just what Negan was saying to him. In the
Yeah, I agree. So is everybody in the chat, have they all watched the episodes again? Or I know Samara had a hard
Spoiler alert.
continuing after this one. Gore alert. Yeah, we definitely need to have that. With these slides that are coming up, we definitely need to make sure that everybody knows that if there's any kids that might be watching tonight and you don't necessarily like them watching the show with you, you may not want them to watch this with you because we have some slides that show some detail.
I don't know. A lot of the fan reactions, I see the kids in the background watching it with them.
Yeah, I know. My kids did. My kids were, they were right there. Even my grandbaby Helena, she will watch it with me sometimes.
Right. You know, and before we start the slides, Carol and I had talked briefly about, and I think she had asked all of us, did we talk about Carol and Morgan during these two episodes? And I went, no. their storyline was so important, but it was so misplaced. But I
Right.
think at the same time, it was placed where it was to soften the blow to us, because like Carol said, we needed some kind of
Break.
good, we needed an emotional break. We needed some kind of an emotional salvation, and that's kind of what the Morgan and Carol bits were. It was emotional salvation to get us through those 2 episodes.
Yeah, it's called Pause.
Pause.
Yeah. And then, and if you watch the Carol and Morgan stuff, you know, there was some levity in there too. So it was, it was a definitely an emotional break.
Oh yeah.
So we were talking earlier with the Patreons about the different actors who had auditioned for different roles. And Aliza did some research to find out who some of the main actors were that auditioned for Negan. And I'm going to throw up a slide. And Aliza, if you want to talk about that.
Oh, Lord. All right. So in the upper left corner is Henry Rollins. And Robert Kirkman actually developed the comic version of Negan around Henry Rollins. And he was also in Sons of Anarchy. Another one was the bottom left is John Hamm, had auditioned. Matt Dillon in the upper right had auditioned. Garrett Dillahunt, who plays John Dory in Fear the Walking Dead, had auditioned. And Lord help us all, Shaggy, Matthew Lillard had auditioned. So, I just that slide that Carol put up of Matthew Lillard as Negan with Shaggy looking at him.
Matt Dillon's the worst.
I'm
Yeah,
looking
Matt
at
Dillon's
the
the worst.
watching the
So,
show.
and we all grew to love John Dory. Garrett Dillahunt is John Dory. So when you look at those, I mean, Henry Rollins was probably the only one that could have possibly have pulled it off. He is a very large man in stature. And if you saw him on Sons of Anarchy, you know, he could have done it to a T. But yeah, so that could have been your Negan lineup right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that Matthew Lillard thing cracks me up. And I love Matthew Lillard because he's a great psychopath. He plays a great horror character. He's wonderful, but I just can't see him. I can only see Shaggy.
I can see Shaggy. That's right. Yeah, Shaggy.
So, anyway.
Even Michonne played a better Negan.
Right. Good job, Barb. I agree.
Yeah.
Sure.
I love that.
In that
was a great
episode,
by the way. I loved when they did the whole what if thing.
Yep.
It was good. Anyway. Okay, so do we need to just dive into season 6, episode 16?
Let's do it.
Okay. So like Aliza said, we are starting with the group. We're not going to focus on Carol and Morgan. Sorry, Samara, you're not going to see any Kari slides during this. All right, let me go back.
Samara, I like that. Like zoink Scoob, are we shitting our
Zoinks.
pants?
All right, so here we go. So how ominous was this? Where we see the lights. We don't know who is inside that trailer at that point.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
The great cinematography leaves you confused, feeling claustrophobic, you know.
What is going on?
Uh-huh.
Not to pick on Dawn, but I think it was foreshadowing that Negan was going to help Rick to see the light.
No, there you go. You're good. Good.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Dustin's going to get deep tonight.
We're going to get into some deep shit.
And I love it. All right.
I've got like 3 pages of notes.
Nice. Okay, so this is the first interaction when they've got Maggie in the RV and they've hit the road. This is the first time that they run into Simon on the road in the blockades.
Correct. And this is where I was watching this episode and I went back to being mad at Negan because they're already picking on this poor guy that was at the library to use him to intimidate Rick's group, spray painting him
Yep.
for being bullies. That's what they are, bullies.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm back to where everybody's like, well, if we were with Negan's story first, we would be following Negan. I just don't believe that. Rick would not have wives, and I just don't think he would force taking half of people's stuff.
Well, I agree to a degree. I agree up to a certain point, but even when they first got to Alexandria and he was telling Michonne, they will either learn and conform or we'll take it from them. So I think but again, it's always it's
Exactly.
just survival. It's what do I have to do to provide for my people and keep my people safe?
Right, but he didn't do that.
Right, exactly.
We all say things that we don't do.
Yeah.
Well,
That was Simon, Pamela.
And in this episode too, it reminds me of how cocky Rick was
Mhm.
towards Negan and towards Simon, and him not knowing that they've already captured his people, and he's like all cocky,
I
Yeah,
think this is where he says the title of the episode too.
it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
But like I was talking to Barb earlier, I said, I'm blaming all this on Jesus because he started all this taking Rick to Hilltop.
So what you're saying is that Jesus doesn't save?
Exactly.
Negan saves.
Jesus doesn't say.
Sorry.
I don't look at it as being cocky or a bad group at all. Because even at the beginning of the episode, when the writers were so creative in this, they're foreshadowing what Negan is telling you at the end. Because you start with Rick and Maggie. Okay, Rick's taking Maggie. It doesn't matter, come hell or high water. He is getting her to Hilltop to be treated. He is protecting her. Okay. And right after we see this, what you see in your main characters, one by one, everybody that's weak comes up to the RV. Eugene comes up and he says, I will be your anchor man. Yes, I damn will.
Yeah.
Enid. So now that's protection. He is telling Rick, I have failed. I've been weak before. I'm not going to be weak anymore. I'm going to protect this. Enid's trying to get out and go. We saw her survive, but we never saw her turn into a badass. All of a sudden, she's trying to run out of the house and be a badass, and Carl has to protect her because deep down inside, he knows she's still kind of weak. But you go to Aaron, okay? Aaron, even though having some conflict with Rick, he says, you're going to have to throat punch me in the face again to keep me from going.
Right.
Gabriel steps up there, and he says he's got this full tactical plan.
Yeah.
Of how to protect the entire community. He couldn't protect his church. He chose not to protect his church. But he's looking for this affirmation. So the whole thing here is leading you to what you all are getting at right here. What takes place in this scene is this is going on the left side with all this protection, and we're going to be here, and we're going to do this. And Simon is literally telling them right here, you guys have different options. There's ways we can do this. You guys have different paths. And he even explains that to the guy that they hung on the bridge ultimately. He tells them why they're doing this, and it is to protect what we care about. Mm-hmm. So it's the same group, it's the same thing. So you can't be mad and hate the other because they're doing the same thing. Don just likes to be biased there sometimes.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just,
not bullies.
One is probably more extreme than the other, one is more extreme than the other. But ultimately, you're right. They are doing the same thing. Negan doesn't want to have to work for his stuff, so he's just going to take it from other people,
Yeah.
But they're saying, but again, there's all this foreshadowing of even Simon says, do you want, that said, do you want to make this your last day on earth is what Rick says. And then it's one sentence. And then Simon goes into this minute and a half dissertation about this is what could happen to you. You better watch what you're saying to me.
And be nice to everybody. Be nice to everybody in the RV.
So they're constantly trying to keep these people from getting hurt any further. They're good people, in all honesty. But anyway, I'll hush before Don stabs me.
Who's good people? Simon's good people?
Simon and Negan's group are the good people in this. They tried to save Rick's group from the very beginning, the first interaction. Simon's there with his people. Nobody shot at anybody. He's trying to talk to him. He's trying to have a conversation. Now, I love Rick Grimes. You know that. But he's out there. He's got his little snarl and his little look. And he's like, we're going to do this my way.
Yeah, because he already had planned on killing 2 of his people, or one, at least one of them in this lineup. He had that plan.
How many did he kill of theirs?
It doesn't matter. He already had this plan, like Barb said, or they wouldn't have did the field trip, as Negan said. Remember, he took everybody on a field trip.
You've got to teach, and you've got to understand here, though, you've got to teach lessons on it, because Negan knew he was weak. The whole peril around this is Negan knows he was weak in his personal life, you know, having the issues that he had at school, having the affair that nobody knew about, not being there for his wife during the prayer, all these things. And he knew how weak that he was, and that's why he come in and he's like, I'm not going to let anybody else be this way. And if you can't learn, I'm just going to take your shit and I'm going to make you this way, because I don't want you to be like me. He's making them better.
I think it's harder for us to understand because we're on our group, you know?
Yeah.
And I see what you're saying, because we killed Daryl, blew up the whole motorcycle gang, and we went into the satellite station, we killed them during their sleep. Yeah, I get we killed a lot more, but I think it's harder for us to understand because we're on our group side.
Yeah. Exactly. Which is it's completely like what Dawn said earlier. I don't see how it could be from that side. We killed 2 of Rick's people. They killed how many of Negan's? Negan, if I was Negan in that situation and I lost that many people after I had built that, there's nobody walking out of that interaction right there alive.
Right.
At all.
He was generous in saying, I'm going to take out one of y'all, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, we only got to the first. Yeah.
I know.
Sorry. Dustin gets a little ahead sometimes. Dawn gets me fired up sometimes here and there. And I got to be combative.
And this was such a great interaction. And it was, now that we know what we know, it's so incredibly sad too, because it's almost like he's telling her, I'm ready to have a life with you. I'm ready to plan my future with you. I'm ready to have kids with you. And, 12 hours later, it's not going to happen. This was so good.
I found their timing of conversation, or I know he's thinking of the future, but that what they're going through right now I think that timing of that conversation was off.
Yeah, I think so too.
I'll go with that.
Yeah.
It was a weird placement of dialogue for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why not do it when they first come back from Hilltop, when they've had the ultrasound the first time? Why not have it there at some point after that,
But it definitely sets up the emotions for the hearing.
Yeah.
Talk about making pancakes later.
That's right. Mixing the Bisquick. All right, so here we have the scene where they come up against the second blockade. And I chose this slide because I love the look of concern on Rick's face, and it's mimicked in Carl's too. It definitely is a father-son moment where it shows, that both of them know that something is going on at this point. That the first blockade wasn't a fluke.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that, Carol, because before they left Alexandria, I was surprised when I rewatched it how much vengeance Carl had in him. Like he was out to get them. And I haven't heard him talk that way really before.
Right.
And it just grows in him.
Mm-hmm.
His vengeance gets even deeper and more seated than even, than Rick's. Rick becomes very broken, and Carl, as he ages and his maturation, he gets more vengeful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the second blockade. And they don't even interact with the Saviors at this time.
Or your second warning to Rick's group.
Yeah.
We're trying to help you, not bully you.
No.
I disagree with this one, Dustin. Now, I could have been on board with the first one, but this one is obviously a bullying tactic.
Yeah, they're just shooting at you. Yeah.
There was probably a pothole back there. They didn't want him to hit it. what I'm thinking. I mean, you could see
They're
it.
warning them because there's a tree down and they don't want them to go the wrong.
Absolutely.
They don't want them to see the tree and the wreck and the crows. The tree and the
That's
crows.
right.
From
Don't get trapped in from.
But what you don't see, I mean, they're all sitting there relaxing. They're non-confrontational. They're sitting on their cars. Nobody has weapons drawn.
it's an emotional tactic.
It's
But
It's
they
just
a
do
mental-
have weapons drawn. Dude
Well,
in the front has
they're
a
cool, but they're not
Yes.
pointing. You know, they're not being aggressive. They're not pointing it at them. At least,
But
No,
that is also a sign of complete confidence in who
Yeah.
they are.
Yep.
That they're not having to stand there with their weapons drawn. They are totally confident in who they are and their stance.
And the one guy up front, when he's shooting off, he's warning the next group that they're coming your way.
Exactly.
Yeah, it wasn't a try to scare tactic. You're right, Barb.
Yeah. And we see that in another one too.
Yeah.
So this one, we know that they're in waiting in the trees, and the group comes along and crosses and ends up seeing this chain of walkers. And we learn that at least 2 of the walkers have personal effects of their family members.
Mm-hmm.
And that I was kind of like what they said. That took some time to put that chain gang together.
Yeah.
Mhm. That's
Yeah.
a lot of effort to try to warn your potential new friends.
they're just warning them again. The road is out. There was a big, huge storm, and it tore down the bridge, right, Dustin?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it.
All had a good purpose in it.
Right.
All had a good purpose. I love
and
that.
this when they pulled up here, this is when I seen the look in Rick's eyes that he was concerned.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That was the look changed with Rick on the 3rd roadblock.
Yep. Especially in the RV when he was holding Michonne's dreadlock. That
Yep.
look right there.
Right there.
So there's the walker with Michonne's dreadlock and her vest, I believe.
No, I think she's wearing her vest. I'll have to double check.
I think
but
she's wearing Michonne's leather vest.
Yeah.
And Aaron spotted that. He was observant.
Uh-huh.
And Rick's or not Rick, but Daryl's arrows, like you said.
Uh-huh. So here we have the group. The saviors are shooting at their feet, again, trying to warn them off to go a different direction because they're trying to protect them, right, Dustin?
Trying to get them on their direction to say, hey,
Right.
We're having a party.
Choices, it ain't working. We're going to show you the pathway.
They're trying to teach them not to play with walkers.
We're gonna have a circle jerk here in a little while.
I always wondered why they didn't go back to Alexandria after that.
Because you had a poor leader.
They really wanted to get Maggie to a doctor. She was in bad shape. That was their goal.
Yeah, and them's fighting words, Dustin.
Them's fighting words.
Smack you around when I see you next.
I love my guy. Don't get me wrong. He's my hero. But I'm going to have a mic drop moment here on that. You're going to say, you're right. And
You're right.
Keep going through your clickety slides.
Nope.
And there'll be a moment.
Nope.
First 20 seconds into episode 7-1, you'll be like, oh, yeah.
But like I said, they were determined to get Maggie there. So
Yeah.
Episode 1 of season 7 is probably one in my top 5 episodes of all favorites. And the ones that follow that, while Rick is being what Negan calls a pussy, I would agree with him. So, and I have my own beef with Rick about those, but I get it.
Yeah.
So this is the next blockade that we see. And of course, Eugene makes the observation of them having the big trucks and all of the necessary tools to do what they're doing.
So see, this was already planned out.
Yes.
All this work.
Because he wanted to protect them.
I love having Dustin as the antagonist.
Yes.
All
The crows were flying right above. We just missed it.
Yeah. Dustin is our antagonist for
Negan is trying to protect his new friends.
right. All right. So then the next episode here we have where they have the saviors behind the blockade have set it on fire. And again, Barb, I think this is the warning to the next group because of the smoke.
Yeah.
That they have been waylaid here, and they should be on their way to the next stop.
Mm-hmm.
And there's dude from the library hanging. And we will see this location again.
Yep.
Of course, they don't. This was such a good moment for Eugene.
Mm-hmm.
It was very insightful for him to say, hey, they don't know how many of us or who all is in here. And I mean, it was kind of like Marxism. It was really great in theory, but shitty in practice. You guys carry her on. I'll drive the RV. And if I die, I die. I mean, he was very willing at that point to step up and take the sacrifice.
Yeah. And I have to say that in the comments, there's a couple of people that are agreeing with you, Dustin. So you know. There's also some people that are going to make you catch hands.
Okay, I want the names though.
I love them too.
And
like
Taylor said that the Bat Lucille just wanted to play ball. That's all. They just wanted to invite him to a baseball game.
That's right.
And I'm not sure, Carol, if you have the actual interaction between Eugene and Rick. Do you have a slide of that or no?
I did, but I didn't include it. Yeah,
I just want to add to that he says to Rick, Abraham knows where. Like, well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because Eugene gives him the recipe for the balls.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Another little foreshadow there.
What you'll notice if you look at every one of these slides as you're going through them, everybody's looking for affirmation. They're either scared, needing protection from who, we won't say it again, or they're looking for affirmation. This entire episode's about exposing the weakness. Even Eugene giving up his bullet recipe there. It's
I would agree with that, Dustin.
Yep.
With the exception of Carl.
Mm-hmm.
Carl does not look for that in any of these.
Right.
And in fact, even after the deed is done, Carl does not break until really Glenn's demise. And that's when you see him. But even through this, he's like, I'm not going to let, another person die like that.
Right.
Carl does not look for that affirmation in any of this.
Because Carl had already turned into Negan back when he had to drag his dad into that house. And,
Sasha was like that too. She was strong.
And Michonne even.
And you could hear it in Carl's voice even when he's talking to Negan and Simon, answering him just like he was nothing, not afraid.
And Taylor says, there's no bad people in The Walking Dead. Everyone is just scared. Wouldn't you be? Everyone is just trying to survive.
Yeah, and that's very true. And that goes back to what you had said earlier about if we had followed Negan's group, then Rick's group would be the antagonists.
Mm-hmm.
Dawn's like, no.
But then there's Dawn.
Think about it, what Negan did with his group of what happened to the Kingdom, their scout, when we found out in...
Well, but that wasn't Negan. That was the Crow. I mean, you're going to have rogues.
But he was part of the Saviors, though.
Yeah. But you saw what he did, to people who disobeyed him. I mean, he put Simon on the fence. He ironed Dwight's face. He threw Dr. Doolittle in the furnace.
But I don't see Rick's group doing that.
I agree with Samara. I'd be on board with the forced wives thing with Negan. I mean, I'm just saying. I would jump on board and I'd be like, yeah.
But you didn't see Rick's group getting in. I mean, you didn't see Negan's group getting into these weird predicaments that Rick's leadership put his group into time and time again. Because you had somebody there in Negan that was making these examples out of one or two people and making sure that they knew if you step up, I'm even willing to do this to my own people. Yeah. It is about teaching you. It is about keeping you from being weak and keeping you protected. Because he was carrying so much guilt around that we learned later on in the Negan episode. He's carrying all this guilt from his wife and what's going on there. And that's why he is this person. He doesn't even want to be this person.
Yeah. I wish we had a little bit more backstory on how he actually formed the Saviors and got the Saviors together.
Yeah, I do too.
So for those of you, I know Sandy and I did the how do you say that? Raleigh studio tours.
Raleigh.
I know we did the studio tours at different points, and this is a very emotional place to go. They have the spots indicated with like rebar stuck in the ground, so you know exactly the fall points. Yeah, they are very emotional to see in person.
So here we have just some
Wow.
reaction shots. Everybody on their knees. People Maggie discovering that Glenn is there.
Yeah.
Them discovering Eugene and Daryl were there. And of course, Carl's badass look to Simon.
This is the episode I really started loving Carl. Like
Yeah.
Me too.
I really, he came into his own right here.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, Destiny. I wish they would open up the tours again too.
Yeah.
Carl even stepped up so much. He was definitely a stronger man than even his father was during these episodes.
What do you think about that there, Dawn?
Hmm.
Yeah. Somebody wasn't paying attention. She's been looking the whole time at the camera to you say that. Now she doesn't know what you said.
She did.
About Carl?
Yeah.
No, that Rick. He was a better leader than his father was.
No, I was saying what?
That's not what I said.
About Carl.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that's what you said.
Yeah.
All right, so here we have again another shot of them on their knees, waiting to meet the man, the myth, the legend.
Okay, can you pause there? Because I think everybody needs to really meet the man, the myth, and the legend.
The man.
Oh, let's see.
Oh,
Boy, do I have a feeling we're going to get close. It's going to be PP Pan City here real soon. Which one of you people is the leader? You're Rick, right? Yeah. I'm Negan. And I do not appreciate you killing my men. And when I sent my men to kill your men, you killed more of my people. Not cool. You have no idea how not cool that shit is. You're going to be up to speed here real shortly. Yeah.
my defense, that was alcohol.
How many drinks was that? Like, what was on our menu there?
There you go. See, Barb should have auditioned for Negan.
You could have done it. You could have done it.
All right. So now we know that Negan has appeared.
Thanks, Mar.
Yeah, Regina, it was freaking awesome. I love it. Give Barb more drinks, Sandy says. Samara said it's the 10 out of 10 best Negan. All right, so here's the guy who actually won the role. There we go. JDM. Yeah, exactly. And here we have the group and
Such a good
all the
shot.
people. Look at Stacy Crowder back there in the corner on the left side.
Yep.
I know we got
And
William Benz in there somewhere too. I don't know who else is in there.
Look at this lineup. You'll notice that Carl and Aaron and Abraham and Michonne are really the ones who are the most prone and up.
Yeah.
They're like ready to face him.
Eugene's fiddling with his jacket.
Yeah.
And there we have it. There's Negan. He does his speech and he does the whole eeny, meeny, miny, mo thing. And then we have the swing.
All right. Now,
Yes, Taylor, we did know that.
Pause there for a second.
All right.
Prior to Negan, you have Simon explaining what they're doing, why they're doing it. Negan's sitting in the RV listening to it. He then comes out and does the same thing all over again. Why are you taking that much time to explain what you're doing to these people that you're essentially mad at for killing your people? Because you're trying to teach them. You're protecting them.
Protecting them.
For the future. Because again, the whole basis of this episode, in my opinion, is that Negan does not want anybody else in this world to be weak like he was back pre-apocalypse. And even when he was with his wife and got weak and the freezer, malfunctioned, all that, these weak moments is when you get hurt, when you get exposed. And he knows that. He learned that. And he's trying to teach them, if I've got to be here with you all, you've got to be like this or we're not going to make it. It's what a good friend does. You're trying to make them better.
Well, see, I seen it as he was just being cocky and trying to say, hey, I'm the one that's the leader. I'm repeating it because Simon's not the leader.
Yeah, and I mean, because every time they've met any of his people, they've all been, I'm Negan. I'm Negan, and so he's like, dude, I'm Negan. This is, I get, because he wants to harden everybody. He wants to harden them. And there's a difference in making someone strong and making someone hard. I think he just wants to harden them to not have any compassion, at all, so.
That's why I think that he wanted to speak to the Savior. Simon did, but Negan was like, hey, I'm Negan. I'm speaking to you all.
Yeah, exactly. There's not going to be any miscommunication. Uh-oh.
I disagree with there's a difference in making somebody strong and hard. Barb made me both strong and hard in her life.
Oh, God.
Sorry if there was any children in here.
I think I agree with you, Dustin. I got strong and hard too, and I don't know that that's possible.
Oh, God.
All right, so that's it for season 6, episode 16, and I have totally and completely embarrassed my oldest child, so we will move on to the next one. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, I'm really sorry, but if you did not like this episode, it's going to get pretty raw. I personally love this episode. So we open it up with Rick completely and totally amazed that he can't understand that any of this stuff is happening.
That is
He doesn't know what to do.
He doesn't know what to do.
How to stop it.
Yeah.
And what does he say? This is where my mic drop moment comes in.
There it is.
What does he say in the 15 seconds into this episode?
He says, I'm going to kill you. Maybe not today, not tomorrow.
In that position, if you're a leader and your entire group is on your knees and you don't say stuff like that, you need to try to negotiate out.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Yeah.
And he
But I think at that moment, didn't Abraham already get killed?
Both of them did.
Yeah, because he has the blood
at
across
this moment,
face.
Abraham.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. But so when you know that happened, don't antagonize. Back up. I'm going to threaten you after you've already killed my people, so you can kill more of my people? No, that is bad leadership right there. And that's what Negan's trying to teach him not to do.
Well, and that's what even Negan says to him, at the very end, and Carol will bring this up in a little bit, is that when he says that's the look I wanted, which is the look of a complete break and right here, he's still
not broken yet.
Control. He's not running yet. He's still trying to maintain control and thinking in his head how I'm going to get back at you.
Yeah.
And he's wanting him to be submissive.
Yes. Negan is wanting him to be submissive.
And it did not take the killing of those 2 people in his group to do that. What it took was him almost having to cut Carl's arm off.
I agree. I mean, it might not have took the killing of the 2 people had the man stopped at the roadblocks and talked to Simon like he wanted to at the beginning, or maybe stopped at the second roadblock, third roadblock.
No, they were always going to kill somebody. Now it may not have been 2, but they were always going to kill somebody.
You got to understand, Simon's the killer. He's the one that would kill everybody.
Well, they did. That's a natural practice of theirs, because when Daryl and Abraham and Sasha when they first meet the saviors, and Daryl blows it up with the bazooka or whatever it was that he did, they had even said that they were going to have to kill one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and they didn't.
Well, they were gonna. But they
They
were
didn't
gonna.
get a chance.
He didn't have it. That's right. He didn't have a chance.
And so, Carol and I had talked about this before we went on was, even if we had never gotten to this lineup position, Glenn would have been the one because he did have him captured. He's not going to kill Daryl because he likes Daryl. He thinks he can turn Daryl to his ways. He's not going to kill a woman because he's not really into killing women or kids. So Glenn was always going to be the pick. And even the Easter eggs that the writers laid out in the earlier seasons of how many times was Glenn holding a baseball bat,
Mhm.
and then of course, like Carol said, the comic death.
Now you say that, Eliza, but we also have Aaron and Eugene. So why do you think he didn't choose one of those?
I don't know. I feel like Glenn
To
was
me,
always.
Eugene looks like the weakest link, but yeah, I could see why he picked Abraham because he's the biggest dude, get him out of the way. But the weakest link, looking at them on their knees, would be Eugene.
I think he picked Glenn because Glenn was the closest male.
And I think Glenn was the first first one to lash out. And Negan said, "You get a freebie. That's a freebie."
Mhm.
And I think he recognized there was a connection between Maggie and Glenn, so he knew that there was something there. But Glenn was the first one to kind of react out, and he says, "Okay, you get that one. That's a freebie." So I think that's really why he picked him.
I think he knew it was an emotional connection in the group with him too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when picking Abraham, if you're going to be that badass to make that impact statement, you've got to hurt the group, not leave all the strong people there to then come back and retaliate.
Yeah, it's prison rules.
Make it
Prison rules.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You pick the biggest, you pick the baddest. And
Yep.
even with everybody stepping up and being on their knees, Abraham's still taller than everybody in that position. I mean, he's still the one that's up the most,
Yes.
But Glenn was the reactionary kill because of what Daryl did. But I think he was picked because he was the one who did the first kind of lashing out or outcry, and Negan's like, that's your freebie.
Yes, I don't know.
Sandy said that Glenn was just a small pizza delivery boy,
Right? Exactly.
I think at that point it was just proximity, and
Yeah.
because if he goes to kill anybody else, he's going to get his shoes dirty. I don't think that he. I don't think he knew that Glenn and Maggie were what they were. I got this whole weird theory around that we can explore later, but I don't think that he realized that, and I think that's why the relationship is what it is now.
Do you think maybe where Rick was taking care of Maggie and he lashed out and then he had no real reaction when Abraham died? Like if you look at Rick, he has a reaction, but not like Glenn. You don't see him break down on top of the RV and cry. He does over Glenn. You hadn't seen Rick do that since Lori.
Yeah, and we all see that even Carl breaks with Glenn. We see the whole group has an emotional reaction to Glenn.
But they didn't with Abraham.
Yeah, because Glenn was their moral compass for the whole group. He was always that moral compass. He kind of took over Dale's spot and then took over Herschel's spot.
So after this scene where he says, "I'm going to kill you," blah, 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 and then Negan drags him into the RV, then Negan tells Rick, think about what could happen.
Mm-hmm.
So these slides here are Rick thinking about the people that are still left in the clearing and what could possibly happen to them.
I'd like to add that Simon told him that the episode prior. He still wasn't thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we have
Negan's re-emphasizing what Simon already told him.
Yeah.
Right. So then we have Negan here telling Rick, "Go get my axe." And I like the look on Negan's face in this picture. Appreciation. Yeah.
Because Rick's being hard-headed and not listening. That's why he throws him out to the zombies to go prove to me how tough you are. That you're trying to be a tough guy.
I agree with that.
I need you not to be this person. This is what's going to get your entire group killed.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So then these are the slides here of the other people that Rick is thinking about and what could possibly happen to them.
And yes, it is true that every one of those people were filmed getting killed with Lucille. That archived footage is probably under tight lock and key or been destroyed. I know that the one of Maggie and Daryl has been leaked, um, but they did that intentionally so that there were no spoilers, so that they would say, "Oh, it was this one," or "Oh, it was this one." So,
Right. Well, and then later on, I mean, when Rick is thinking about it again, they show every single one of these people getting the bat.
Yeah.
So it just, I just thought that it was, if you look at these pictures, there's only two of them that are staring up at Negan. Everybody's got their eyes down except for Michonne and Abe.
yeah.
Mhm.
So then after Rick is thinking about all of his friends and family, the two that have been killed, this is him crumbled on top of the RV. And there's the dude in the background.
Sandy had a question. When did the actual cast know who was getting? I think I had heard somewhere with Stephen Yun that he knew a couple of months before. But as far as I think all of the actors were kind of kept in secret as to the full outcome of that night. That's why they were all filmed, as they wanted true emotional responses from them.
Yeah, I think they said that that they didn't know either until they shot the preceding.
The final scene, yeah.
Yeah. So then here we have,
Oh, heartbreak.
yeah, Abraham with the two fingers, the peace sign, over to Sasha, and Sasha just breaking down, which,
That was tough.
yeah, that was a rough one. And Barb, what did you say? How many episodes did it take you to see this peace sign?
About 7. Details, yeah.
Yeah.
I wish he would have even I know he was saying goodbye to Sasha, but he had a longer relationship with Rosita. I wish he would have did at least looked over at her or so. I know you can't think in the moment that you're gonna die, but it just I don't know, the connection with them was bigger.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, and it was funny is because Negan even picked up on that.
Yeah.
He even picked up because he thought that she was still with him.
Right.
Right.
And so, there's just, I mean, Sasha has a very visceral reaction to what's happening, but Rosita's was very, very deep. And, it was kind of one of those numbing, almost in shock.
Yep. Even at the end when they're taking him away, you could see her breathing through her tears. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But like I said, I know you can't think in that moment, but I just think it was just more of a long-term thing with him and Rosita than Sasha.
Yeah, Marianne, it killed me too, this whole thing. So then the next slide, because I love Rosita, I wanted to show and give her props too, because again, she was with him longer.
Yep.
And this is after the first hit, and he's taking it like a champ.
So nuts.
Yeah, and this is Rosita's response to it.
Overkill.
Sorry, here's the gore. So Abe is taking a nap. And we have Stacy Crowder in the background again.
Yep.
Stacy.
Hi, Stacy.
Michonne is still very upright.
Yeah.
It's still staying strong as she can.
Yeah, this was a hard one to see that.
Yeah.
So then here we have Daryl has attacked Negan. And Negan ain't having it. Then Dwighty Boy comes up with the crossbow.
Well, I told Carol, I said, that was a grab Dwight by the pecker and say, you're not doing it. So let me kill him. And he's like, no, you don't get to kill them until you try.
It's funny how people's reactions, they get excited that he did that in a second, because I watched the fan reactions like, oh, wait, that wasn't good.
Yeah.
Right. It was kind of like, Dwight just got his balls cut, yeah.
and that's the whole integral thing that Negan's trying to teach the group. You can't do things like this. You've got to be prepared. You've got to be controlled. And why didn't he kill Daryl here? Daryl's the one that went off, against him. He'd had Daryl there. I mean, he knew a lot about it. But I think in that moment, he knew this is Rick's right hand.
Yeah, exactly.
This
I
is the
agree on
one
that.
And so I'm still going to try to teach you, even though I'm going to have to teach you this lesson again because you're a bad leader and didn't stop him or say something, or which you might not have could have. But I'm saying in that moment, he still tried not to hurt them any more than he had to.
Yeah.
And that's the key thing I keep pointing out by repeating the same stuff.
I would agree with that, Dustin.
More than he had to do.
And you could see the look in Rick's eyes when they got Daryl. His total demeanor changed.
Yeah.
He was on the defense. You know what I'm saying? It was
Well,
like,
and what happens next kind of goes to what you're saying, Dustin, because what Negan does next is rules are rules. You follow the rules or this happens.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I would agree with that insight as well, Dustin, because, Negan has said all along, it's like being a parent. You tell them once, you tell them what the consequences are. If they choose not to do what you tell them to do, there's consequences for your actions.
exactly, Marianne.
Yeah.
Well,
Here's the Marianne's comment.
yes, he did want Daryl there. But then you go a little farther right there with what you all were just saying. He's already proved how many points here. I mean, he's done took Rick on 2 joyrides in the RV and whatever else. He's gave 2 speeches, dissertations to the group. But then he says this right here. I need you to know me. Why?
Because he's a narcissist.
I want to teach you all of my flaws.
Yes.
I want you to understand. I just learned who I was or who I could have been my entire life. And because I was so weak and caused these problems, I see it in your group, and I'm going to fix you and make you better. So I need you to know me.
But the problem is they didn't ask him to fix them. That's the difference.
That's why they're called the saviors.
No, that's the difference.
Saving people.
That's the difference is that he is a narcissist because they didn't ask for his help. He just
They needed
assumed
his help. They didn't have to ask. You can see it.
Well,
Rachel
no,
couldn't
but
follow
you
him.
need to go back to the episode where Daryl meets Dwight and Sherry and Tina in the woods, because that's where you find out we didn't like what we were having to do. That was the last time I was going to kneel, and that's why they initially ran away. And even in the I guess the second episode or third episode of season 3, when Dwight sent out to look for that guy, and he's like, "This is the last time I'm kneeling." There is a sense of narcissism there, but he has to make. But at the same time, he is ruling through fear. He's not ruling and leading through respect. It's 100% through fear. If I don't do this, then he's going to do this to me. If I don't kneel, I'm going to get the iron to my face. I mean, it's like Napoleon and Hitler, little man syndrome. I'm going to show you I'm bigger and badder than everybody else.
But when you're in that hectic of a situation where the entire world essentially is against you, that one weak link can cause the whole empire to fall down. You got one door left open on accident, or you've got one mistake that's made that was incidental. That can just matriculate into so many things. So if you're not constantly reinforcing that to these people, you're leaving it open for mistakes.
Well, but I agree. There's a different way of doing it, though, besides through fear.
Eliza, great point what you said, because I feel like he wants to be that person, but he wants to do it through submissive and fear, and if you don't do it this way, but he still wants you to like him. He still wants you to like him, but you got to do all this.
Think about how he probably treated his kids in gym class. You're going to run until you do what I tell you to do. You're going to do laps and push-ups until I tell you to do what I tell you to do.
Because he's playing the video games with the kids when his wife comes in and he's having a good time with. I don't think he. Again,
I don't think Negan was like that before this. I
think
really
he
don't.
This person.
Yeah.
Because
I think he was a cheater and a liar, and his wife is dying, and going out with her best friend. So that tells me all about his personality that I need to know, and it's exactly what he is right now.
But we don't, I mean, but you can be a good leader and you can do it and have teachable moments, but you don't have to rule and lead by fear. If you lead by respect, you will get respect, and you'll get a lot further with the people around you if they respect you as opposed to if they fear you.
I just think this whole Negan thing is his guilt of how he treated his wife, and
Yeah.
he
I
beating
do too.
himself
I
up.
think it's a
That's
big
all
part of
that
it.
is.
I agree. I
I think
agree.
it's a big part of it.
I think Negan also has a semi little bit of a God complex too, because he thinks that he needs to save everybody, and he thinks that his way is the right way
And the
and
only
the only way, and so he will save people even when they don't want to be saved.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Let me ask Dustin a question since you're getting so deep in this. What do you? I want to know what Dustin thinks that Negan is thinking about Daryl. Do you think that Negan actually thinks he can change Daryl's mind to be one of his people?
I think
You
he
think he's thinking that in that moment?
I think that Negan looks at the totality of this group and says they're broken. And I think that he can look at he can look at them as a whole nil in there and say they're broken. And I can look at each, and Negan can look at each one of them and say there's something else outside of the entirety of them individually that's broken. So had he got Daryl, and had he sat down and had he said, hey, what was your major loss? What was the thing that put you here, put you this way? And it's the loss of his brother. And
Yeah.
if we start following the bouncing ball backwards, okay, through all of this, okay, uh, I think that if Negan could have said, well, if you would have done this different, if Rick would have done this different, if whatever it would have been, because Negan's a good bullshitter too. We got to learn. He's dealing with kids
yeah.
all day. So I think that he can spin this and get a chance to get Daryl to want to be or come to his side. Because ultimately, look at Eugene. I mean, that entire group, Abraham saved him individually. Then him and Rosita saved Eugene. And then the entire group saved Eugene. And ultimately, he turned because he knew what? This is safer. This is
Yeah.
better. This is more whatever. And I think that's
Okay.
what Negan was thinking there along the same lines.
Okay.
All right. So there's that. So here, and I'm so glad that I caught this.
Oh God.
Looking at his backside. It is a nice backside.
Well, there's that too, because hello.
Sorry.
But this is the blunt force right to Glenn's skull. And I am all about the gore.
Right. I love
And
it.
if you'll notice, none of the guys in the back are phased. And we saw this as evidenced by the satellite. When they went there, they had all the pictures of the head bashings on the walls. And so they are accustomed to seeing Negan doing this.
Yep.
Yeah, they're completely unfazed by this.
Everything the man has done from the beginning, after he knew, and I agree with Don here, everything that he's doing is to atone for his sins that was pre-apocalypse. That's what he's doing. And these pictures, why do you need the pictures and the talks and calling everybody together and having the iron to the face? Eventually they learn, but you're constantly reminding them, making them stronger, better, not weak. And you can't do that by being a pussy, as you guys say. You got to remind them you're going to get hurt. Bad things are going to happen. It's not that he's bad. He just has to be the teacher. It's what he did in school. He was teaching. All he's doing right here is teaching. Instead of a chalk and chalkboard, he's got a ball bat.
I would agree with that. This is a teaching moment for his people for sure. And it's a teaching moment for our people too.
You break the rules, you get the bat.
I agree with that it's a teaching moment. I just think that Negan is misguided. I think that he is going about things the wrong way because of his God complex and his narcissistic personality.
Mm-hmm.
So then my daughter Angel wanted me to grab these screenshots. The one on the left is the first time that Glenn sees Maggie.
Oh,
the one on the right is the last time Glenn sees Maggie.
Okay, let's hear it.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
Thanks, Angel.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's very powerful because he's got that same look on his face of
Oh
that
my
she
God.
is his own thing, you know, that she is the only thing that is ever going to matter,
That's right.
you know?
And that's why,
And
like, somewhere like we were saying, or you said, Carol, somewhere in the inner parts of his brain that were functioning, the last thing was he wanted to tell Maggie was, I'll find you. And, that kind of harkens back to when they got separated at the prison, and just, I've got to find Maggie, I've got to find Maggie. And it's like, I'll find you.
yeah.
And
And
that's
all of the puns are going on in the
I
comments.
know. I was just laughing at
I
Davis.
have to appreciate all the eye puns. Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
yeah.
and that's what I love about the Walking Dead writers. What you guys said there, the way that they can just carry this same thing all the way through.
Yeah.
And they don't forget. He said he'll find her, and that's just epic writing right through there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I would agree with Eliza. I think Glenn and Maggie are probably one of my absolute favorite couples in the entire series.
Well, there was just something so genuine and innocent and sweet about their love when they met, at the farm. And just that look on his face, it was kind of like seeing, Wonder Woman for the first time. He was like, oh my God, who is this woman, on a horse? So it was just, I really did like their relationship.
Yeah.
Terry.
I know. Who needs a pop? So, and then Angel also suggested this slide of Maggie looking at Glenn and responding to what Negan has done. And then we fast forward to Dead City, and this is her response to him killing the kid in the bank. And it's like the first slide is showing the horror, and now she's in Dead City, and it's like I think she gets it.
Because she agrees with him now, because she realizes she is him and he is her.
Yeah.
Both ends of the spectrum.
Exactly. And I'm 100% with you on that one, Dustin. She has become Negan, and there's, and
he tells her too in Dead City, I am not a monster. It was because he was trying to explain the Croat and how he was truly crazy, but that the monster came out when it needed to come out for the protection of his people, and so I see that. I mean, I understand to a certain level why he did what he did. Rick killed all of his people. I'm going to kill some of your people to protect my people. And then, and then you see that, but then you also get with Dead City when he says, I do it for the people I care about to protect them. So it's like kind of
Yeah, but did
cares about Maggie a little.
I think he already cared about Rick's group before he brought him in. Because even after he kills Glenn, he looks at Maggie and he says, I'm sorry. You see him go from this heinous person with malice intent to soft very quickly. And that's kudos to the actor there, Jeffrey Dean Morgan. But I really felt like he was sincere when he said that. I think he really cared.
It was again that I did it because I had to do it because those are the rules.
And then if you notice when he goes back after he does that, when he goes back and he's hitting Glenn, it's constantly over and over, and he's talking to himself. And I forget exactly what he said, something like a bunch of pussies, I'm just getting started or something like that. But he was so angry, and it's almost like he knows, I can't believe I just took this woman's husband. I'm doing this because I lost my wife. This is why I am the way I am. I just done this to her. I think he really felt that expressive guilt there.
He says it later in an episode, though. He says, I enjoy killing people and killing them at the right time.
He also told Maggie that if he could do it all over again, he'd have killed all of them.
Yeah.
But he killed people from Hilltop. He killed people from the Kingdom.
Yep, Oceanside.
Did Hilltop and Kingdom and Oceanside go and kill his people?
Well, I often wonder how much of the killing was Negan actually aware of.
Well, we know that he wasn't aware of the heapsters.
Right, and then when he found out, he was pissed off because and Simon killed Rory, if I'm not mistaken,
right
at Hilltop. So it's like how much of the killing that was going on was Negan actually aware of? We know obviously he had done some, because we've got the photos up at the satellite.
Mhm.
But yeah, I
Okay.
mean,
He does mention about Oceanside too, that, he obviously wasn't aware of that. He goes, "Oh, that time that you killed all those people at the Oceanside."
Okay, so
Yeah.
that is a sign of a weak leader because he
Because
doesn't know
what
what
his
his
people are
right
doing.
hand is doing.
right. I agree with
His-
that, Don. I agree.
His group was so great because he was such a great leader. It extended out to 15 outposts, unlike the cul-de-sac back here in Alexandria.
So
And
what
he
you're
didn't know what they were doing. He can't
what
be
you-
everywhere at once.
so what you're saying, Dustin, is that he is not a micromanager. He hires the people to take care of business, and he trusts that they're going to do the job he hires them for.
But
And
you're
when
only as
when
good
they
as the,
didn't, he punished them. He killed them.
but
So
you're
he-
only as good as the people you keep around you too.
Right.
And then he started replacing them. Or if he did give him a chance, like Dwight, he did what he did there with his face and burned him.
And took his wife.
Yeah.
And killed Simon.
Yeah, he did kill. He killed Simon. He banished Croat. He tried to kill him, but he banished Croat. Sandy's like, "Oh my God, I need more wine."
But don't you
Really
think?
fired up.
We're all
don't you think
agreeing
he
now that
killed
Negan's
Simon?
killings was purposeful and okay.
But
What,
don't you
Dawn?
think he killed Simon to show that he was still in charge because he felt like he wasn't in charge anymore?
Yes,
savior.
absolutely.
Well, that brings you
Because-
back to being not a good leader because your
Yes.
right hand man's are turning on
Yes.
you.
Yeah,
And then
because
that's-
when Negan went missing there for a little while, Simon really jumped on the horse real quick.
Can I just say that I absolutely love this conversation?
I know.
The different points of view, I'm just absolutely digging it. This is fantastic. Law Dog, I'm more in love with you now than I ever was.
Love you guys.
I love it. Okay, so and then here we have Negan on the left when he was looking at Maggie after he killed Glenn. You see that look in his eye.
Yeah.
And then you have the look when he turns to Maggie after he kills that kid in the bank in Dead City. And the one on the left is a look of confidence.
No remorse.
Very little, if there is. I think there might be a little bit, but there's a justification in his look because there's still a glint in his eye.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The one on the right is definitely full of remorse.
Yes.
You know,
That was I didn't want to have to do that, but I did
Yes.
it to protect. I did it truly to protect you guys.
and I think the difference is because on the left, Negan was still in charge. He was the head cheese. He was teaching lessons. He was trying to be a savior with his God complex, and he was 100% right in his brain. It didn't matter what opinions anybody had. His
Mhm.
way was the way.
Mhm.
And then the guy on the right is the guy that spent years in jail, had his ass handed to him by Rick, and then was saved by Rick
Yeah.
instead of killed. And then he was taught a lesson. And then also he had the interaction with the kids, and he saw how Alexandria was, and he saw how the people were in Alexandria. And I think that even though he spent most of his time in the jail in Alexandria, you cannot be not affected by that kind of family.
Right. And I mean, and
He
he
saw
said,
how Rick was a leader. He saw how the actions in Alexandria, he saw them growing and prospering and all of that. And it had to affect him. And I think that's why now Negan on the right shows the remorse.
Judith was a big influence on him too.
And
Yeah.
I think that too there.
Standing ovation, Carol.
I think
Fantastic.
that-
there you go.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think that he's looking at Maggie on the right, thinking, "This is not who I don't want you to look at me how you used to look at me.
I agree with
I
that.
don't want you to feel this way," because essentially, when the people stopped Negan from getting the medicine back to his wife,
Yeah.
they turned him into Negan because she ultimately died, and that's what led to this transformation.
Yes.
He just took Maggie's husband, and he knows that he's transformed her, and he
Mhm.
doesn't want, he doesn't want that pain to be there. He doesn't want her to look at him that way because he doesn't ultimately want her to end up like he did. But then we
Right.
ultimately see
She
sad.
does. Yeah, she does.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's already seeing that. I'm like, I don't want you to do this.
Right.
Yeah.
I
Right.
will say that Negan does make Rick a better leader.
I think so too. I think he challenged him
Well,
and he
you're starting
forced
to
him
agree
into
with me. We're starting to agree.
Yeah.
But I also think, but like you said too, in the jail cell, let me get a gold star from Don here. In the jail cell, when he's sitting there and he kept talking to Judith and looking out and things like that, he saw them growing, but then he realized he saw them growing happy.
Yeah.
Just being normal. He didn't have to always be on his throne. He didn't always have to have his scepter or Lucille, up there given this dictation. He's like, we can just exist. We can grow and be happy.
Right.
And he was probably thinking, was there a middle point that I could have done this at? So yes, Don, I'm agreeing there with you.
Yay.
Yay. All right. Deva says that the teacher was taught a lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think somebody had said it earlier too, and just to reiterate, Rick punished him but didn't kill him, and gave him the opportunity to learn from think about what he's sit in his room and think about what he has done.
And Don, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there a scene where Maggie goes to take him out in the prison?
Yeah.
And then
She
what
goes
she
to kill
do?
him.
Doesn't.
Yeah.
Because she knows he's already more miserable alive.
Yeah.
Which makes Rick more sinister than Negan would have ever been, because Negan left him alive to suffer.
And he wants her to kill
Rick
him.
was worse than Negan.
Negan even said that he was going to do the same thing to Rick if Rick didn't bow to him, that he would keep him alive after keeping his family, after killing the family, that he would keep him alive for years to think about it. And that's all that Rick did. It doesn't make him any worse than Negan. Rick gave him exactly what he promised to do to him.
And the one thing that they took from Negan, aside from just his freedom sitting in the jail, was that crutch, that Lucille, that connection back to his wife. They took that from him, and he never got it back. Never got it the same way again.
Right.
I'm going to bring up something that I'm going to go way back on real quick. That I think Rick's reaction of the way we're seeing him and where Negan has to teach him that lesson is because Rick, when he faced the governor, he tried to compromise, and it didn't.
You're right.
Yeah,
and it didn't work.
Yeah.
And so Rick he knew what he went through, and he wasn't going to go through that again.
Well, he said, "I'm not taking chances anymore."
Yeah.
I
didn't even think about that, Don.
I'm not taking chances anymore. Good screen grab, Carol.
I love this screen grab with the blood and everything in the air.
See, and that's when that's Glenn, and that's when he's cussing and just going over and over and over.
Yeah.
And it's like he's frustrated himself. Like, I just screwed up.
Yeah.
This is this woman's. There's something significant to her.
And look at the dude that's just kind of kicking it on the truck in the background. He's just watching.
Well, he knows Maggie's single now.
He knows Maggie. He's got a chance.
I'm trying to go out here like, hey, what's up, girl?
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
got a chance. He's like, hey, baby, give me them digits.
He's got his members only jacket on. I mean, look,
Right.
chill.
His members only jacket. Wow, you just dated yourself, Dustin.
If the gray beard didn't do it, then
right. Yes, and Samara, you're right. Everything after the first hit with Negan was all for him. The first one is for the effect, the shock. Everything after that was Negan getting everything out.
Yeah, because they would have ultimately have died. Hiya, Santi's in the house.
Hiya, Santi. Hiya. All right. So yeah, can we just appreciate the blood in the air?
Good screen grab for
Right?
sure.
All the graphics in this episode is absolutely amazing.
Fantastic. Okay.
And that Glenn's still moving too.
The hand. I had a picture of it, but it doesn't transpose.
Oh, I know.
Still, but the hand is still twitching. That was great. All right. So here we are. Those have all been flashbacks, and now we're back in normal time, where Rick is being shot at by Negan. Negan is tearing up the roof of the RV to get Rick to move. And Rick has now decided that his saving escape is going to be the dude hanging from the bridge. And we all know that didn't work out very well. And then here they are discussing. Negan has cleaned off the axe
Spotless.
hall that he found. And now they're just discussing.
Trying to make a clean start.
Yes. And I pulled this picture for Eliza and for Deva because they are Negan fans. And what a glorious picture of Jeffrey Dean that is.
And even in the RV, even when Rick gives him that look, there were so many chances that Rick could have killed Negan. So many chances.
Yeah.
But I was telling you, Carol, when Negan kills Alpha, because of how that group was very primitive and very primordial, that you kill the leader, the one who kills the leader then becomes the leader. Not in this situation. If he had come back with Negan's head, they would have just opened fire on everybody, and so I think he knew that. I think he knew I can kill him, but everybody else is going to die.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and that was a different set of rules.
Yeah.
A different set of rules. The Whisperers had their rules and they believed they were 100% right. Negan had his rules. He believed he was 100% right. The governor had his rules and he believed he was 100% right.
And Rick had his rules.
Rick had his rules.
Right.
And the only one out of all those groups trying to teach anybody else and make them better, Negan.
Well, and Alpha.
Mr. Smith, thank you.
Mr. Smith.
Oh yeah, and Regina said the Wolves did too, and they absolutely did. They had every group that we have met, they've all had their own set of rules.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we've made it back, and Rick has not learned his lesson on the way that he's looked at Negan, and so here is the final lesson for Rick.
Yeah, and Carl, bless his heart, he really. I mean, I'm like Dustin. These 2 episodes. Chandler really stepped up the acting and I really saw Carl come into his own when he just looks at Rick and goes, Dad, just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Just do it. And to sacrifice for everybody. But this is what it took to break Rick. This is what it took.
Yeah.
And even down with the Sharpie, I mean, if you think about it, and the writers were brilliant here. Because sometimes I like to look, this is going to sound a little weird and a little off topic, but sometimes I like to look, the episodes are 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. How much did the writers spend on specific things? How many minutes of this, like right here at this point, this starts around into a 15-minute illustration after you've already killed 2 people.
Yeah.
And you're sitting here now taking time to draw a Sharpie. If you're going to do it, you're just going to do it.
Yeah.
But you don't care where you cut it off at. But he's trying to teach them. Okay. There's purposeful meaning behind it all. So yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this was just my thinking, but I looked at that marker and it's not a Sharpie, it's a marker.
Yeah.
It's a kid's marker.
I don't really think he's trying to teach. I just think he's playing mind games to mentally and emotionally break them down.
Yeah.
Rick up there, you got to sometimes. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just think with all of them, they're all going to have PTSD, so you're going to break that person, so they're submissive. That's all this is.
Yeah, I mean, even Michonne steps up and says, "We understand, and he's like, "I know you do, but he doesn't yet,"
Because he's a narcissist, right, Dawn?
Negan is a narcissist, yes.
No, Rick.
No.
Rick.
No, Rick's not a narcissist.
I mean, okay. Michonne understood. Carl understood. Everybody there understands, but this guy who's had 2 car rides, lost 2 friends, we still don't get it. Because it's his way, right? But he's not a narcissist.
He is still traumatized by the governor and watching Herschel and trying to make a compromise. And he, I think it was Eliza said, he wasn't going to make that mistake again.
I can agree with that, actually.
Yeah.
He was holding on to that final, shit's going to get real.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like him telling Michonne later in the episodes that, he doesn't want to lose any more people, so he's going to do what he needs to do for Negan.
Terry, you are so bad.
Terry's killing me tonight, man.
I know.
I love it.
Carl went out on a limb. Negan drew the line.
Next thing you know, he's going to say, "Let me ask you a question."
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. So
There's the
you work
look.
for me. You provide for me. There it is.
And I think Rick knew when he was at that point that he let his group down too.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. And we
Yeah.
even, and it's so hard to not talk about this and not talk about, the episodes that are after this, because he still remains so incredibly broken. And what more of a gut punch than when he shows up at Alexandria and says, "Here, hold Lucille." Ugh,
Yeah. And
And
then
I
pretended
always
to forget it.
right. And I always think of season 2 when Rick says, about him being a leader. He's like, I didn't ask for this.
Yeah.
He didn't ask to be your leader.
No.
Send him a postcard, okay?
Yeah. I mean, this is truly a broken man right here.
Yeah. So again, here we have Abe just kicking it.
Yeah.
Maggie and her look. Daryl's broken. Michonne is distraught. Rosita can't even believe what's happened.
Yeah.
And then I love these images here.
Mm-hmm.
There we have Destiny. There you go. There's your feral Daryl. The ape
Bouncing around
movement
like
in the back of the truck. And there we have the group, and they just kind of dissolve away.
Yeah.
And then we have Sasha with her head in her hands. And here we have Sasha and Maggie. Sasha saying that she's going to get her to Hilltop.
And bless Maggie's heart, she, was trying to get them to go back, and that making this to be her fault, that all of this happened, that it was her fault, and it wasn't her fault. It
Right.
was going to happen. It was
Yeah.
going to happen.
Right. And right before this, when they're talking about moving Glenn's body and everything, and Destiny pointed this out, and we had talked about this earlier about how Rick had said that Glenn was their family too.
Saddest part.
Yeah.
Very sad.
Well,
Very
I
sad.
mean, Negan complimented him too, because he said that even the guys laying on the ground got the Spirit Award for the day.
That was a smart ass remark.
So
Right?
he complimented him too. But
And Maggie automatically assumes that the group is going to fight Negan.
Yeah, you're right. That's what Sandy said as well. Yeah, go back and get ready.
Go back and get ready.
And you notice the two people that was looking right at it was Carl and Sasha. They were
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah.
First two.
Mm-hmm.
This scene is probably the hardest one this right here for me. Just Maggie just standing in between the two blood-soaked stains on the ground. This was when I still liked Maggie.
Yeah.
And that was hard.
I mean, I still like Maggie. I understand what has happened to her. But this was when we still had the good Maggie.
Okay. You still
I just
love Maggie. Barb, give your mic drop right here.
Okay. So we were talking earlier, and there's a scene between Carol and Maggie that just aggravates me about everything that has happened between Maggie and Negan. Like I was telling Dawn, if she would have just took him out and ended it because of what he did to her husband. But then you have Carol and Maggie, who she brings her back to the hilltop to show her that the hilltop is gone and that Negan was a part of it. And that's why she let him out, is because Alpha had to die. So if Alpha had to die because she killed her son, and she's saying this to Maggie, how is that? It's contradicting to say that. Then Negan should have died because you killed her husband.
Right.
So Carol's standing there telling Maggie, I let him out because Alpha had to die. And Negan
And that's not
could do
even
it.
her son. Yeah.
It's not even her blood son. But meanwhile, you're talking to a woman who's the guy who killed your husband. To me, that's contradicting.
Well, the only justification I can give to that is he had done some transformation.
But at that time,
Yeah.
like at that moment when they were trying to kill Negan,
Yeah.
It should have been done. You know what I'm saying? And they
Yeah.
were still in the process of trying to get Alpha. But just to say that to her face, that Alpha has to die, is so contradicting. And that just pulled at my heartstrings.
Yeah.
Do you
And I'm
think,
surprised Maggie didn't have something, or they didn't write that in to have something come back like that.
do you think do you think there's any difference between him killing two people versus Alpha having, the 8, 10, whatever up there on the spikes? You think it was about the amount of people, maybe, which is why she did that?
No, she was thinking of her son.
So she was thinking of herself in that
Yep.
situation.
Yeah.
But even if, I mean, still saying that to Maggie, if Alpha had to die, then what makes it, what Negan did and his people.
Yeah.
Well, and and you see, Carol obviously wasn't even around when all of this happened, and she finds out later, much later from Daryl. We don't know how much later, but she finds out later from Daryl.
Yeah.
But I guess by the time Carol had let Negan out of jail, he had, in a sense, learned his lesson and was kind of like, this is how you're going to make up for the shit you did to the group. Whether it gets you killed or not, you're going to do this.
But I feel like Carol did it for selfish reasons for herself.
Yeah,
Yes,
she totally did. She totally
Yeah.
did. And I agree, when they had the all-out war, and Maggie, yeah, they probably should have killed Negan at that point.
Yeah. And look how rogue Carol went. And she wasn't thinking of anybody but herself.
No, she
She
wasn't.
even told Daryl, I can't let it go.
Yeah. And I think, and you're right, and Maggie's done the same thing with Negan, with her obsession with him.
Mm-hmm. I just think that conversation right there, I mean, I know it has nothing to do with this episode, but it just aggravated me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Carol was being.
She kind of wished Maggie would look at her and go, really?
Yeah.
Really? That's all she had to say was,
Who are you talking to?
Really?
All right, so this is a hard part to watch as well.
That one's hard.
Yeah,
I've got a napkin.
I
got a plate.
Me too.
I got a plate.
And I like the set, and I like the movement that Morgan makes where he puts out the 2 candles. Yep, see, there's a basket napkin, or Morgan snuffs out 2 candles, and it's very poignant as to the fact that Glenn and Abe have just died.
And I remember when this, watching this the first time and the second time and thinking, was that going to be how the procession of how everyone dies? It's Glenn and Abraham, and then Sasha is actually the very next one, and then it breaks ranks. But just that look between Glenn and Abraham in that one scene was so good.
Yeah, and you're right, Samara. It's worse now with so many of them in this pictures are gone.
And Sandy, wait, why didn't I get to buy anything from this scene?
And Kiki said something. She said Sasha's pregnant.
Yeah, Sasha's pregnant. Yeah.
Right, which is even more destroying.
Yep. Very good.
So here we have the RV. We have the 2 blood stains on the ground. And this just killed me with this. And this was another one that I don't remember seeing, this part with the walker that Rick
Coming
sees.
out the brains off the ground.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. And just starts dipping into gray matter.
And I know we probably already know the answer, but before I got into a lot of watching it over and over again, I was like, all these people, all this noise, all these lights, where the hell are all the walkers? But then you forget Negan has all those people probably on the border, but I'm like, not one walker during that whole 12-hour session.
Yeah. Well, here he is. Here's the one.
The one.
Yeah.
We lost Dog.
We lost Dustin.
How did we lose Dustin?
I don't know.
But Dawn did it. She banned him, I think. But it kind of, that scene where the walker comes out and falls and starts eating the brain and blood and gravel off of the ground. It's kind of poignant of this is all that we are. This is all that we are and all that we're going to be in this world. You know, we're going to either die or we're going to, you know, we're going to be killed or kill.
Right. I don't know where he went.
Said.
All right. So then here's the last shot.
Those eyes.
Yeah. So we started with his face and we end with his face.
Yeah.
And there you have it. That's a broken man right there.
You know, that's such good acting on Andrew Lincoln's part to tap into some deep guttural emotion that he can pull that out. I know that they were talking with Norman Reedus about the first time we really see him cry was with, you know, Merle, when we saw Merle had changed, and he tapped into his relationship that he had with his father before he died. And so you wonder what dark places do these actors have to go to pull out some of these emotions?
Yeah, I think they should have won some sort of award.
Absolutely.
You know, and it was sad that a lot of them, they were overlooked.
Oh yeah.
So there we have it.
There it is.
So
that was so much fun.
That was. It's always great to go back to the old episodes.
Yeah.
And hear everybody's point of view.
I
would have never looked at any of Dustin's point of views.
Dustin took the RV and he left.
Yep.
He went to go find Negan and tell him he was right.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, I think that's something that I think everybody has always said is, yeah, we would have felt like the saviors if we'd been following them for, you know, a long time. But there was definitely something of, you know, making everyone follow him by fear.
Yeah.
Totally by fear. Fear and submission as opposed to respect and, you know, wanting to follow.
Compromise.
Yeah.
Oh.
She can't help it. She's got to be on camera.
There you go.
You know what the deal is.
That was a great. Well, we went over, but that was awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for sticking around, you guys. We really appreciate you coming.
Yes. Good discussion.
Yeah. So, all right. Well,
don't forget, hey, next week we're going to watch and review The Mist. It has several of the actors, and Frank Darabont and Denise Huth were director and casting director. And we're going to have Terry Collier as our special guest.
Our Broham. Our Han Brolo. Yep. So, all right. I guess that's
Love you
guys.
And thank you, Dustin, for being on. Sorry you got kicked off.
Yeah.
I don't know if he got kicked off or what.
Dawn did it. All right. Love y'all.
Dawn, you want to do this?
Oh, yeah. We want to thank our Patreons, Destiny, our very own, Terry and Kay Collier, Sandy Morrison, Lauren Perkins, Ben and Melissa Gilbert, Pamela Blythe, Marianne Craig, and Dustin Baker. And a very special thank you to our Camp Mommy and Poppy. Aren't they cute?
They're so adorbs.
And plus, we just announced Carl. So that would be fantastic if we got to ask them some of the questions from these episodes, like at camp next year.
Yeah. And so promote having Your Relishing Dead do a panel with Chandler Riggs.
Yeah.
Hey, there you go. All right, guys. We love you.
Love you. See you next week.